A lot of Indian students, when they come here, they sort of tend to remain with other Indian students. Where I feel that becomes a problem when you're trying to diversify.
One thing I often tell young students who come from abroad, I said, the way you know that you're really working out in this country is by making girlfriends here. Because now you take the courage to say, hey, listen, would you be okay if you were going?
Wow.
So how do you make that a task where you have to accomplish it?
Hi, guys. Welcome to a very special episode of our podcast, Talent First. Today, I'm honored sitting amongst people who are sort of redefining the way we look at education. We have with us Professor Jagdip, as well as Brock. So, hi, guys. How are you doing?
You're doing good.
Great.
Good to have you here.
Thank you so much. So, the way we'll start is, Professor Jagdip, if you can introduce yourself, tell us about your journey a bit, and then I'll come to you, Brock.
Good. Happy to do that. My name is Jagdip Singh, and I grew up in Chandigarh, not far from Delhi.
I'm from Delhi.
Oh, good. And I, at that time when I was in Chandigarh growing up, it was a small city. Today it's a very bustling and...
You were in Chandigarh or outside Chandigarh?
No, in Chandigarh.
Wow.
I started in Sector 20 and then ultimately moved to Sector 10.
Sector 18 is the best one.
No, Sector 10, where I live.
Okay.
So I did my education there in the DAV College.
Okay.
And I learned how the Indian culture and the education are very connected ideas. And after I finished, I went to IIT Delhi to do my electrical engineering.
Wow.
It was a good experience. From a small city to a big, bustling capital of the nation. And people from all over the country, and I got exposed to them. After I finished my electrical engineering, I worked in India for 7 years in different companies, in Tata's, and then later on Indian Oil, and so on. And I learned a lot about Indian systems and Indian applications of technology.
At that time also there were applications of technology.
Huge. I remember at Indian Oil, they sent me to a special project because electrical engineer, you had to go to projects which had electrical components. On site.
Okay.
And they wanted to build a project which is moving this oil, which is very thick. Usually it's a residual oil that people could use before, but they wanted to build a new system that would make that usable for people. So they had to build this technology. It's a guy in Pune who had built this particular furnace to move very thick, viscous liquids. So that was my job with them. So the technology was... I think India has always been very entrepreneurial in bending, modifying, adapting technologies for its problems. I mean, what you call jugaad.
Yeah.
So I worked 7 years, and at the end, I was doing more sales and marketing.
It's a natural trajectory of a professional there.
And it was good. It was a nice combination of technical skills, the technology, the working with clients, solving problems. That was fun. And growing whatever the space we were trying to grow as a business. And I said, I've been doing this marketing for a long time, but I have never had a formal education in marketing. So I came to the United States to do a degree. And it so happened I landed in a PhD program. And they said, you have 7 years experience, so it's okay, and we will be fine with you. And the first semester I remember, I missed being in the industry a lot. I felt like a PhD career is very different. It's more directed towards education. And I never thought of that as a goal for myself. But after the first semester, I didn't realize that I had changed so much over those 7 years. I found the PhD program to be a great fit just for where I was in my life.
But did you, like a lot of people now will relate to you because they're also leaving their hometown, their country and coming to the US. They're a bit scared about sort of feeling lonely. So when you came to the US, and again, I'm just trying to make it more relatable to the audience, did you feel that homesickness in the beginning?
Yeah, I think I was the first one from generations of our families to arrive here. and I landed in Texas. The best thing about that was it felt like India, temperature-wise.
Right.
But the people are very different.
Yeah.
And establishing your space is not as easy as it is in India.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are all kinds of doubts one has. Am I on the right path? You're starting your career again. And you worry whether you'll have the support system to get you through the challenges of life. Because in India, the support system is so powerful. And that's another lesson, I think, that one learns by taking plunges. They said the only way you learn to swim is by being thrown into the water.
Yeah.
So I think the same idea that when you don't have the typical system around you, which seems to all the time support you, you find in you the courage and the skills and the expertise needed to arrive at a different point.
Right.
And that piece of it is actually the success for life in a way, because you'll go to new jobs, you'll go to new cities, and you can't say, I'm going to only stay in the place I was born in. It doesn't make sense. So the more you say, I want to do something new, different, exciting, which takes me to new places, the more you have to rely on yourself.
Sir, a lot of Indian students, when they come here, they sort of tend to remain with other Indian students. So, and I feel that becomes a problem when you're trying to diversify. So, did you also do that same problem or mistake in the beginning or no?
So I wouldn't call it a mistake. I would call it adding, not replacing. Meaning, I loved Indian food. I still do. So I want some Indian friends who are always giving me, either they're good cooks, so that's a good friend to have, or they know the right places, or it's fun to talk about things you remember from your childhood. I don't think you need to substitute, you need to add, meaning you need to grow the circle. So you should not hesitate. One thing I often tell young students who come from abroad, I said, the way you know that you're really working out in this country is by making girlfriends here. Because now you take the courage to say, hey, listen, would you be okay if you were going?
Wow.
So how do you make that a task where you have to accomplish it? And you get successful at that. Why? Because that is one social system we need to learn how to grow our networks. And then life is better, because then you're not choosing this or that, you're choosing this and that.
Right.
And the more ands you can build in your life, more power to you, because each and is an opportunity that you could unpack. Right? So I think that is, again, with experience and being away from everywhere, you learn that there is something you have to give to someone.
Right.
And you have to bring value to a discussion, a talk, a meeting. And the more you start building that sense of you, the more you begin to develop a network which is not limited by your traditions, your culture, or the people you know. So I would say for a student from India coming to this country, it's not just about education. And education here is definitely of a different kind than in India. I can tell from IIT Delhi versus what I do here. But beyond that, it has all these elements of growing you into a person that is more confident, more assured, and more effective in dealing with the various challenges of life, without in any way limiting what you can do, being entrepreneurial.
So when you say confidence, that is one area that we notice that is a problem, or that is one area that needs work for a lot of people that are coming. How do they look at it? Like, let's say you could do that because you had a whole journey. Let us say from day one, you want them to start with confidence. How do they do that?
If they want to start day one with confidence, they should have confidence before they come here. It's not possible. It is a process. And confidence in one context doesn't mean apply in a different context. And overconfidence is a disease. So many people think I'm, too assured, but they don't realize all the complexities they're missing, all the nuances they're missing. We in this school do emotional intelligence. The idea is how to sense people. Am I with you, or I am in my own space?
Wow.
So this idea of how do I read
Right.
you
Right.
while I'm constructing in my head what to say next, right? And again, getting a girlfriend is a good step.
That's the highlight of this conversation.
Why? Because you will fail so often.
Or a boyfriend also. depending.
Yeah, I mean, just what I meant was from my perspective. But I think the idea of having a opposite friend
right.
to go say, and the idea is, can I go to a date with you?
Yeah, yeah.
And how to say that, how to deal with that, and how to manage that in a way that that requires failing many, many times.
I'm sure you're speaking from experience.
Yes, I am.
Oh, the truth comes out. Here it
And
is.
those failures could be devastating
Right.
if you start hanging your hat on them. But if you say each failure is a way of learning, what did I miss? What did I miss? And how do you analyze situations?
Yeah.
And you see right away you're building emotional intelligence, right? And by reading what you're saying, I can choose to ignore what I'm reading, but at least I'm reading what you're saying.
Right.
So I think that idea of failing consistently by tackling challenges is the key to build confidence. So
Yeah.
I think students should not have these expectations that I land in the U.S. in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'll meet Professor Singh and Brock Schroeder, and I'll get confidence coming through my bones. It's not going to happen.
Right.
It is a process you learn, and you learn how to manage it,
Yeah.
and how to every day try something challenging which has a risk of failure. And after you fail, you analyze what happened.
Wow.
And that's how you build. All I'm saying is this country, chances of failing and not feeling that everybody knows you failed is very high. So it's between you and that person. And you can really use that as a way to, like I was saying, do the things outside the classroom, equally important. Because if you think of what analytics today is, the business analytics space, and I know your students coming from India spend some time at IIM Indore.
Yeah.
They do 30% of their credit work there.
Right.
We look at their applications right in the beginning.
Yeah.
And we are working with you to say, how can we coach them, build them, so that their journey is more effective, both in the education side and also learning from being here as part of a culture and being confident. When these students come here, they will see that in business analytics, just having a technical skill is not going to get you a job. That's a job that you would enjoy and would grow in. You definitely need technical skills. And by technical skills, I don't mean surface skills. I mean understanding for a given problem, a problem-focused analytics. For a given problem, with this kind of customer base and this kind of things we are selling, product or service, what kind of data is best suited? What do I have that data, or do I need to construct the data? And then finding out a model that will work with that data in a reliable and powerful way to reveal insights that somebody can use. Just running a model is not good enough. And you might think, oh, that's a lot of work. And of course, in our program, we do all that. We do teach a lot of models, and we teach how to select the models, how to do the analysis so we get insights for use by someone. So we do all of that material. I'm teaching a machine learning course this semester, and that is our main course for bringing everything together. But that's not enough.
Yeah.
Because when you go to a employer or would-be employer, and the question asks is, tell me something interesting you're doing, the students have to learn to tell data stories that fit that individual and the work they have done. And to do that, you require a mix of confidence, flexibility of language, reading the signals, and working with the hardcore analytics you have so that you combine them to give them a story that they would remember within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
How do you get that flexibility? It is from having a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Because you can read, you can see it's not working. So I need to modify my story. I have to tell you something interesting so that you would have interest.
But how important is business context when you're trying to tell the story? I understand the psyche of understanding the person you are telling it to, But business context itself is very important.
But think of the person not as someone to go to date with, your
Sure,
employer.
sure.
You think of the person as representing a particular job, a
Function.
particular skill in a particular industry.
Right.
That's what person represents, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the idea is, once you know the business context of the person
Yeah.
and what they probably are looking for, the student is a winner when they don't reaffirm it. They don't say, yeah, we also do, let's say, we do regularization models to figure out the best promising area under the curve kind of model.
Right.
You get ahead when you tell them something they had not thought of. I have to surprise this individual
Yeah.
and say, these models were used, but I really went to this place and I found this model that I think it would work very well with this kind of. Now the person is saying, tell me why. Tell me why. Just like a boyfriend and girlfriend, why should I go with you? Right? Why should I?
Yeah.
I have so many choices. Why you? Right? So you have to give them something more than what they already know in their mind. That kind of skill building requires the confidence, the technical skills to be joined in a way that can tell the story in a few minutes.
So when you take your classes, how often do you use this analogy between like boyfriends and like girlfriends and like business context?
You can tell I use it very often.
Yeah, I can tell that.
Because it resonates with them. I mean, who
Right,
doesn't
right.
want a boyfriend and a girlfriend, right?
Yeah. But that's what I'm trying to tell people, guys. That's how they teach you in Case Western.
Yeah.
That's something very unique. Like what you are trying to tell us, because of this boyfriend-girlfriend example, now this will stay with me.
Yeah, that's right.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Right? So I think our goal is to give all the possibilities. But there's an old saying: you can bring the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. Right? So
Wow.
the students had to have the hunger
Yeah.
to say, even though I may have nowhere. I don't think I will ever get a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I got to try.
Right.
That's the spirit you need.
Wow.
That I got to drink something, man. I can't just go away. I can't let this water sit.
Yeah.
I got to drink something. And even if it is bad tasting, maybe I'll go to some other place or
Yeah.
do something.
Yeah.
But I can't leave the place without. I think that spirit is where I think students from India need to be coached a bit to free themselves from any believed hindrances they might have.
Perfect.
And come to this country as a fresh start,
Wow.
as a new possibility,
Yeah.
where failing, their relatives will not know. Nobody
Yeah.
will know.
Yeah.
It's between them and whatever they're doing. But they got to make it work.
Yeah.
Because once they go through this process of
Right.
challenge and failure, a new world opens, which is very different than they ever had
Right.
imagined before.
Yeah.
And isn't that a good reason to come?
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
No, so what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Now, let me just quickly go to Brock
Sure.
and come back to you. So, Brock, you are one of the pioneers of, sort of creating new pathways for a lot of Indians to come to the US and study.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of people that are looking at you and want to understand your journey. Just quickly tell us how your journey shaped up and why are you so passionate about international students coming to Case Western, coming to Weatherhead School of Management?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Yeah, and I got my start. My whole career's been in higher education. I actually started teaching astronomy, running a planetarium and observatory.
Wow.
And so I was a faculty member, but also kind of a small business owner. I had to bring in about 3,000 students a year had to come through my planetarium
Wow.
in order to fund it. But
Where was this?
This was south of Chicago at a university, actually my alma mater. And
Wow.
so,
And this was all
nice-
physical training?
Yes. This was started in the mid '90s doing
Wow.
that, and did that for a good almost 20 years. And then, along that way, I moved into administration. So a provost there hired me as a dean to oversee a number of different academic services. One of them was study abroad. And at that time, I was sending about 75 to 100 students a year to various programs all over the world. And one of them that actually helped start was in southern India. And so we had about a dozen students every semester going to a partner college in southern India in order to study. And so I made several trips there to help get it started, then review the academic program and the student experience. And from that, then I actually then moved into another university here in Ohio, and we began building partnerships where we would then have students come to our university here in Ohio. And so that, it's been exciting for me to be on the sending side, to send students
Exchange.
but
Yeah.
then also to have the students come here
Yeah.
to the United
Yeah.
States. And there's a lot of overlap, American students going to southern India. I mean,
Give me like-
that blew their world.
Give me
I
like
mean,
2-3
their mindset.
reasons why an American student wants to go to South India to study.
It's a fascinating country. I think there's this mystic, there's this magical allure. Plus, many of them, at least those students that I advised to get into this program, they really wanted to understand the incredibly rich, layered history of India.
Yep,
And
yep.
South India is very different from Northern India.
Very
So
different,
they
very
knew
different.
they were coming into a part of the country, that has long history. And for them, it was just a rich experience to understand the Tamil language, to understand the kingdoms that
Yep,
existed all throughout that part. Prior to the colonial period. And so to me, I was jealous of the students. I got to spend a week here, a week there. They got to spend a whole semester.
Right.
And that was exciting to be able to see through their eyes that journey of revelation and expanding their mind. I mean, here they are in their, 20, 21, 22 years old and having this really fascinating and mind-changing global experience. And that's what I see when students come here. I know Professor Jagdip was talking about building confidence. And there was a student I had 2 years ago that arrived here from India. And he kept showing up at my office. I noticed he had LinkedIn, connected with me on LinkedIn. And then when he arrived here, I was so excited for him. He was from Southern India, so we kind of had a connection there. And he kept showing up to my office. And finally, I just had to ask him, I said, now, you come here and you sit in my chair. I invite him in. Please sit down. Let's have a conversation. And I said, but is there a problem? Is there something that you need from me? He goes, no, I just want to improve my English speaking skills. And he said, I'm preparing myself to interview for a job. And I know I'm going to be interviewing for a job soon.
Wow.
And I just want to improve my confidence and my language. And I was so overjoyed. And I was incredibly moved when about a month ago he called me and said, guess where I am? I'm in Florida. I'm running logistics for a company, for a startup, for an entrepreneur, and I finally made it. I got my job here in the United States. And to me, to see that after 2 years, that journey that he made, that he discovered American culture. I don't think he ever got a girlfriend. I'm not sure that he went that route, but he was very intentional in seeking out conversations, seeking out people. You could tell he was nervous, a bit anxious, because he's talking to somebody with great authority and somebody he respects. But he still put himself out there and kept doing it over and over and over again and made those connections. To me, that's what that fills my heart up. That's what I live for. That's what I do this.
Can I ask and make an observation?
Yeah.
So when you said he was out there, and before that you had talked about being on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Now, when you guys are gauging applicants who are trying to apply for your MS in Business Analytics or any such program, do you check their LinkedIns out?
Not formally. It is one of those things that it's just a lot to manage. We get hundreds and hundreds of applications a year, so it's impossible really to have the time to do that. I know you're on social media a lot because I try to follow you, but that's a black hole of time that I try to restrict myself. But we do, if a student does share that, we do give them an opportunity to share their LinkedIn profile with us. Obviously, it's on their resume. And so sometimes during the review process, certain things kind of pique your interest, and that's a great way to showcase yourself in living color,
Right.
To be able to showcase who you are and what your pursuits are.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so what is your thought about building a personal brand in today's day and age? Because a lot of our candidates that are coming, when we talk about getting a job, they are that confident in the personal brands they have built that they have their own distribution of reaching out to recruiters, mainly via LinkedIn, that they are seeing a massive uptick, massive higher probability of getting a better job. What is your thought on that?
So I'm in the marketing field. So in marketing, we think influencers are people who create personas that are virtual personas. May have nothing to do with the reality.
Yeah, obviously.
I'm surprised you say obviously.
No, it is obvious. It's all a perception everyone is selling.
And so, so that's a very interesting thinking if you think about it. Virtual personas have little to do with reality, but they seem to be very effective in having more and more people wanting to create what you call brands. When you said brand, I meant in that space.
Yeah.
And more people to follow them for whatever purposes, and somehow in the process create value. In marketing, we think this is a fad.
Really? No.
Because,
can you explain why?
I'll explain why. Because ultimately, there's nothing to give, right? It is a virtual created. Maybe it'll be attractive to some segments for some time, but when those realities don't work, people begin to get disappointed. And they say, oh, I wasted so much time, so much money, but actually it is not what it promised to be. And you can think of many areas. Maybe if I play on the boyfriend, girlfriend, and let's assume a person can't seem to be successful at that. They go to this persona, they say, you put on this stuff on your face, or
filters,
cut your hair this way, or put on this suit, and then you'll get it. That's not how you get a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You get it by bringing something real to LinkedIn is real. LinkedIn is real. So LinkedIn is different than this branding.
Yeah.
And I think business analytics has often been a more subdued sense of marketing. It is not the fluff of marketing, because they say, don't tell me a story if you don't have data. It's a very good idea to think about, because marketing in the past was considered to be a soft field where the stories you tell were meant to only attract people without really evidence for it. It is just the right words, the right pictures maybe, the right combination. And that still sells. I don't want to say you don't get attention due to that. But beyond the attention, and they are in analytics, they are into attention models. How do you just get attention? At the next step of attention, the marketing's big question is, what can I deliver of value that will improve the lives of customers? That's a winnable formula.
Yeah.
So attention by itself is not enough. So if you have a brand, I would say build a brand based on those ideas. What you're saying is distinctive. You say, I do this kind of thing because I like this part about it. Then it needs to have something to give. You say, but the way I do it is using this kind of tool or this kind of data, or I have skills to learn on my own. Now that's a very interesting idea. How do you learn on your own?
Yeah.
New tools, new advances, new changes to make that happen.
So sir, the reason why I asked you this question was that you said you have to be a storyteller in some form or the other. And when we were talking about business analytics, and I believe to be a storyteller today, you need to be an influencer, you need to be a creator, you need to create content. That's why I was coming to that.
I don't deny that. But I said something else too. I said, don't tell me a story unless you have the data.
No, but data itself can have a lot of connotations. It can be constructed in many ways, same data.
So maybe that's the next step.
Yeah.
That is, tell me how will you tell from good data from bad data? That's how I can tell whether your story is any good.
Right.
So I'm saying in the business world,
Makes sense. Yeah.
people have moved on. They're saying, give me the detail, man.
Yeah.
Tell me, here's 2 data set. Can you tell me which one is better?
Yeah, and why?
And why?
Yeah.
Here are 2 stories. Tell me which story is better and why. I think marketing is in a beautiful space because we are telling stories that are not just powerful to hear, they are powerful because they deliver something of value to improve customers' lives. That is a sense of it. So you need to be able to tell which data is better than others. You need to be able to tell which analysis is better than others. And you need to be able to tell us how will you make lives better by using those insights, not just for attracting and keeping them occupied due to attention, don't want to deny that it exists. But the bigger space of marketing is that. Most companies are looking for that kind of talent.
So tell me, what do you think when with AI coming into picture? A lot of people are a bit scared about these sort of inferences that you were talking about, data, that they will somehow, AI will start giving those inferences and they're not getting into business analytics. So what is your thought to them, take to them?
So in my class, we are using generative AI.
Really?
So this machine learning course, because generative AI has two powerful ideas, many, but that can be useful for my class. One is in, writing code. People develop their own code, they get code from others, and then they have to blend them. Often mistakes happen. How do you fix it? It can take you hours to troubleshoot. I'm a traditional electrical engineer, so I think troubleshooting is good. You should spend some time figuring out how to troubleshoot on your own. But I think some help is good. If generative AI can take my code and point to me, look, here must be something around here. And I'm smart enough to know just because it's saying it there, it is not there. It is somewhere in the neighborhood. I still have to be smarter than the generative AI to pinpoint, fix, and modify it. Can't take what it's given to me. To me, it is the basic sense of business. Good competition makes you better. So I think of AI as a competition. That it can write better than I can, right? It can figure out code faster than I can. Then what do I bring, right? So I need to be able to say, it may be able to write better, but it doesn't know what to write. That insight I have. And maybe the insight the AI has is based on past data, which typically it is. And what is the biggest challenge we have today? Making decisions for tomorrow. You can't repeat past mistakes or past decisions and hope you'll succeed, right? So you have to think of, so if I knew this is how it works, how should I change to be better in the future? That's why you paid money. So you need a human to work with that stuff from AI to think about the future. The second is AI can help us do the coding and figure out the right model to use, but it doesn't know the context. Right? Maybe you can say, assume you are in a fashion industry, but it still is using very aggregated material. So what can I do? I can identify very specific things within that context and bend, adjust, and modify that to the Indian jugaad. AI can't do jugaad. Only Indians can do it. Right? So there is the answer. And I gave you two examples of how the AI is a threat if you don't want to be better. AI is your friend if the idea is I can bring something that I can build on it so that after building, it is better than I was without building, right? So the same idea I said to you before, not or, and. We've got to do the ands, bring these human sensibilities
together
and skills with what AI can do faster, better, and more effectively. And then merge them to do better in questions that cannot be done by either very well.
So Brock, tell me one thing. When I talk about AI, now you are looking at people applying. At the time they have their LORs, their SOPs. How have you seen with Chat GPT coming into picture?
Well, let's just say essays and interviews have dramatically improved in the last year and a half.
They all look the same.
They do. I'm like, why is this structure? I've seen this essay before.
Now you long for some mistakes in them.
I know. I'm like, wow, the writing has dramatically improved.
Right.
Yeah, we do have to interpret and kind of see through and.
But you see through, right? You see through. It's written by Chat GPT.
You can see through it, and what's fascinating is I feel a little bit more positive about it because I'm actually seeing the essays have dramatically improved. But I've also seen the vast majority of applicants aren't just copying and pasting what Chat GPT or any other generative AI has produced. You can see that they're using it as a tool. And so that's good. I enjoy that problem solving. And thankfully, at least in most of the applicants that as I've reviewed their essays, they're really truly answering the spirit of the question, the prompt, the writing prompt. But yes, we we can definitely see that generative AI has had an influence. And that's good, as long as it's used for improvement. Take your skills, take what you bring, use the tool to improve what you convey.
So Brock, tell me one thing, right? With respect to the essays, obviously it's written, and that's something, again, if it's Gen AI or something, it's tough to tell. But when you are interviewing these people, what difference have you seen in the kind of people you are interviewing in the last 3 or 4 years? Because the kind of content they're consuming. Now, this is also content they're consuming. Now, let us say before the interview with you or someone like you, they've already seen your podcast. They already know a bit about you, your psychology. So are you seeing the audience, the students, becoming more and more mature because of the content they're consuming?
I think so in some ways, but remember, the interview is an opportunity for that student to be able to convey who they are, right? Because that's the prompts that we're asking. Who are you? How is this program going to help you? And then where do you want to end up? Ultimately, what's your goal? What's the trajectory that you want to follow in life? And how is this pathway that you're choosing right now through Case Western Reserve going to help you get to that pathway or begin that pathway? And so to me, the interview is an opportunity. It's kind of a magical combination of the confidence that the student brings, their personal brand, whatever it is that they're trying to convey non-verbally. But then also it is the verbal responses. Are they spending time really reflecting on to provide substantive answers, not just rote, standard, don't tell me what you think I want to hear, but tell me, provide for me insights on who you are. And so that, I think that is, at least in the interview process, those are some of the things that we're trying to look for is this individual truly serious about presenting who they are, to a potential graduate program to say that this program is going to be useful for me and this is how it's going to be useful. Here's also how I can contribute, because that's another question we ask is, Weatherhead is a community. Weatherhead School of Management is a community of learners. And so how do you contribute to that community of learning? What do you bring? What is it that you intend to supply? How will you lead, but how will you follow? Because so much of our work is done in collaboration, whether it's a group project, where you're leading it or supporting it, but how do you contribute? And so to me, I think that's the power of the interview, is it allows you we have the black and white, we have the transcripts, we have a resume, we have essays. That's the black and white. We can read that. Now's your time to be 3D and tell us exactly, give us the insight and paint the picture for us of who you are and how you'll contribute to this community and how this community and this program in particular is going to help you develop and grow to get you to the next step.
Right. So holistically, I understood how you're looking at applicants, but technically, when a person is applying to MS in Business Analytics and Intelligence, what are some sort of things that you look for technically?
3 things. First is the guts of their academic performance. We begin by looking, and your students should know, we go into detail into where they got their degree, and then we look up the school and figure out if there's anyone here who knows the school. We look at the specific courses that they took, and then we look at their grades over the period. Were they declining over time? Were they rising? In which courses were? So that's the guts of because our sense is you need a foundational material to build on it. Although I said before that poor grades at some point in your program, depending on where that is, does not completely derail your case. You need to be able to explain it. You need to be able to tell us what happened and do something that compensates for it. So in other words, it is not as a matter of fixed material. We want to know what they did with what they observed, because others are observing the same. That's the first part, I would say. The second part would be, and I would add to the guts also their performance in standardized tests, if they have that.
Sure.
Second, we look at their statements of different kind. They write different statements, and the interview is part of that. And there are, I think, 2 main things within that piece, and I'm combining again the statements and the interview piece. One, do they have a good sense of listening to the question. So there's a question, and they have to respond to the question. So they have to listen either in the interview or to read carefully what the question is and try to be close to that and give the response to the question asked. Number two, can they say something that appears, because that's all we can see, authentic and different? They go hand in hand. If you say, tell me what's so special about you, I combine the two. I said, tell me something authentic, and that's unique to you. So authenticity comes from uniqueness. And how do you talk about that? And why do we think that's important? Although many statements of that kind are not very strong, because it tells us how in touch with you are with yourself. How are you self-reflecting, if you think of self-reflecting? So many people think that I have to write this powerful, authentic statement that says, I changed the world by, or I did a big thing. Not really. We just need to know how you're self-reflecting. And I remember a beautiful statement of purpose. The person said, as you will look at my credentials, you will notice I had 3 F grades.
Wow.
And straight. Because I see it too, right?
Yeah.
But now you got my attention when you said it directly.
Wow, love it.
And now I'm saying, tell me, what can you tell me that'll explain all this, right?
Yeah.
And the next whole paragraph is about what happened. And it cannot be sob stories, this happened and somebody died, and that doesn't fly because we say life is like that, man. So if you're going to be handicapped by those situations, not going to work. You got to tell us what happened that allows us to think that you're self-reflecting, right? And you could easily say, I went into bad company. I was just doing bad things.
Yeah.
And I learned from those bad things this thing. See, now I can connect the
being
idea.
honest matters.
I think authenticity is a better word. Because you can be honest without being authentic, right? I need to know what makes you what you are. Right? So very important, I think. So that's a second category. Number 3, we look at your resume. And as a student who, people know how to fill in resume, like LinkedIn's and so on. I think we have been over time seasoned to figure out, did the person do anything outside what was given to them? That's what we're looking for. So in other words, in the courses, did they do something outside, which is substantive and could take it to a further point? Or if they were working in a company, did they do something outside the required role and do something with it? And we have in our program a student leadership council. So among the students, they identify 3 or 4 people who would provide leadership to the group. By leadership, what we mean is their goal is to create new ideas, which we will help support and build and execute, which improve the learning and the social system within which the students are operating. Because we say, ultimately, when you leave, you're leaving with education and the social network. These are your friends. If you didn't know them well, you missed one piece of the school. And that's very important. So I think the idea of how they show leadership qualities that can make them candidates for the leadership council. And the students from IIM Indore will be very eligible to be part of the council. They'll have to do something outside their educational responsibilities. This poster session, which you must see before you go out, was organized by the Student Leadership Council in consultation with us. And they did so many things in between to get everyone to understand what it is, how to prepare it, how to deliver quality, how to practice many times, because this was poster where they were actually presenting to our partners. They were 30 or so partners who came through. So having leadership qualities, even in small ways, that show that you are more than just doing what you're told. That's the third thing we look for. I think that makes for the criteria. And that is very compensatory. You could have poor something here and you show remarkable. And we say, maybe we should take a risk with this person because this person has something. and we want to give the benefit of the doubt. But if all of that is standard, and you do whatever, you stay in the lane, don't be entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
As I said, I think the analytics field needs people who are breaking the boundaries. Plus, this country needs people to grow who are not limited by.
Yeah.
So finding a way to give voice to that idea, the reason I come to this country to spend so much money and being so far away is not just to get education. It is about changing the way I think about the world and my place in the world for it. And these seem like big words, but I think they happen slowly, but they do happen. You are exposed to a new setting, much like being thrown into the water. You've got to figure out a new skill, how to swim.
So when, this is a question for both of you guys. When a student comes to you for the first time, let's say they have come in for a spring intake, what are some usual challenges you have seen them facing? Like the most common challenges? You can talk to me generally about the university, the School of Management, and you can talk to me particularly about certain subjects in the course.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's a social experience the student is having when they come to the United States. So if they've never been out of India, never really away from home, there's the challenge of all of a sudden seeing a whole new world. The new way things operate, new words that are used, new acronyms, and so the other thing is as students make their way here to Weatherhead, they're also learning at a different level. So it's learning at a graduate level as opposed to an undergraduate. And so, so I see some of the challenges often occurring within the first 4 weeks. That's usually when students are confronting those challenges and then settling in to meeting those challenges and the opportunities that they afford. And so, quite often I've seen students I call it hitting the brick wall on week 4 of their international experience. That's when homesickness, or I'm tired of this American food, I want to just find a grocery store like I'm used to, or my roommate is snoring, and finally after 4 weeks, that's it, I've had it, so how do I change this? So usually it's by week 4 when students hit that wall and they have to really climb over that and figure that out.
But that's common.
But it's common, and they do it. They succeed. They really do figure it out. Because again, it's not long term, right? There's a beginning and an end to this graduate program. But then it's the beginning of that journey, And so to me, I think those are some of the the real challenges that students, successfully overcome in making that transition and adjusting here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So settling in, very, very important. So I assume Brock has addressed that. And students have heard that that settling in process has to be condensed. 4 weeks is too long, because that's 1/3 of the semester gone, with all the breaks in between.
Right.
So that the challenge is how to cut it down. So I say, do come early so that you can get the lay of the land. And if you see the weather to be in the fall when they come, it is warm.
It's warm,
but there's a snow coming. Thankfully, they'll come in January. The shock will be the first day. And then eventually things will go so much better. Spring is such a beautiful time here. So the weather is on their side if they come in January. So settling in is critical. But I think in the educational process, there are 2 main challenges, I would say, for students from India, as I see it. The first one is what I would call not hesitating, meaning in the class, when you don't understand, raise your hand and ask the question. That takes courage, but less courage than getting a girlfriend or a boyfriend. So begin there.
Like there's a Hindi word for it, besharam ho jao. That's what it means.
No, patient.
In a good positive light, I'm saying, ask. Don't be afraid to ask.
Maybe I will not use that term. Let me explain why.
Fair enough.
It is not just raising your hand for raising a question.
Sure.
Although initially you'll have to do that. It is because you are thinking at the same time you're hearing. That skill that I can hear, listen, compute, and ask a question, that doesn't come easily. So how do you practice that? You try to flow with the professor is saying, and you can't make sense of it unless you've read in advance, right? You know the topic.
Yeah.
Because if you go in green saying, I learned the class, then I'll go back and read. Wouldn't that be easier? No, it is harder because you miss the chance to interact and to clarify your doubts. So not hesitating. When at the end of the class you feel like you missed some points, you got to go back and ask someone. Sometimes there's a TA. So you could go to TA. People say, I couldn't get the TA, I couldn't call. Email, send an email. So using these different tools of not hesitating to clarify things that are not settled in your mind. You should go back home every day saying, I think I understand the stuff. Why? Because you have to go beyond it. The class is not just about limiting it. You're going to go beyond it. So that's one big thing that they have to learn, how to participate in the class, how to go back to clarify, how to read. It's a disciplined approach to education. You got to read before you come. At the end, you go back and read again, and you make your notes so you understand. And in analytics, you don't know it, you actually do it. You go on the computer and you run. So all that stuff about not hesitating to clarify and move. The second, I would say, is developing skill to write and present. Right.
How important is presentation for the course?
Very, very important. It is write and present, and it's the same thing. I can give you a code, and it'll be a beautiful code. I said, yeah, good. Now write it down. Write down to me what you were thinking in developing that code. And there is a reason we say write, because writing means I have to first explain that in some coherent fashion, but it also raises why did you do that and why not many other things. Code does not tell me that, right? I need to know what you were using as selection criteria for choosing a better model. I need to know that. And presentation, meaning writing and presentation are two different things. Presentation means I need to get up and reorganize all the things I have to begin with. I'm going to today discuss this problem, and at the end you will see I'll have these insights. How to distill it down to those two main attention getters. What's the problem? You distill it down. And because the problems we give in assignments are loosely defined on purpose, because students are expected to refine it, develop it, sharpen it as they would in the real world. And number two, at the end of all that, tell me what did you find that's new, interesting, and useful to me. That insight, people get all wrangled up in too much stuff. And when you do that, you're telling the person who's hearing you, now you judge me based on how I connect the two endpoints. Is my data good? Is my analytics good? Is my interpretation right? There's all the places you're exposing yourself. And there's nothing better than that in analytics, because the more you expose, the more you show the quality of your mind.
Perfect. One final question for both of you. If you guys could go back to your university days, your master's days, your PhD days, what would you do differently?
Oh, what would I do differently? That's a long question.
Sure.
Because you didn't say many things you wanted to say in that. But I would say, which is relevant to this group, is that I would have...
a girlfriend?
Yeah. A different girlfriend.
I did already. That I did right away. I think I would say I would remember again and again that my learning is not just in the classroom, which I truly, truly, truly enjoyed. But it's a social network I'm building. And every touch point with somebody is a reason to build that network. I think that I learned slowly over time. And I met so many interesting people. They're like in a train, you meet so many people, and you got to know them because they're in the same compartment, right? And you spend enough time to say, what did they bring for lunch, and what were they carrying, where were they going? But you never exchange cards. You never said, hey, here's my, detail. And I never thought of keeping them informed. That skill of building a social circle, which begins in the school. I just was not fully competent. And if I was to go back, that's one thing I would definitely add to my list of things to do.
Perfect. What about you, Brock?
Yeah, I'd underscore that. I was thinking the exact same thing when I did my master's, and especially when I did my PhD. I was so laser focused on getting the reading and the writing, because just reading and writing and reading and writing and some presentations mixed in here and there.
Yeah.
But I was so focused on that network, that I wish now looking back, especially in my PhD, there were a number of different individuals that I had an opportunity to meet, in classes or things like that. And now looking back, I wish, I wonder how their dissertation turned out or where they ended up, with their career. And I think that was the one thing that I really missed, is that I didn't get a chance, because who knows, how even now, that knowing them, would have a bigger impact on me presently if I had maintained that network and
Or
connection.
you on them.
Yeah, vice versa.
This
You're
is
right.
how social is.
Yeah.
It's not a one-way street.
Yeah.
I think that comes from just knowing that you want to bring value, because that's a currency for social networks.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
I think too, the other thing that which I have done, and I'm glad that I have, is I have maintained contact with the faculty that
you have?
were really impressive
Well,
to
that's
me, and advisors. I've tried to always reach out to them, not always annually, but I try to.
But do they maintain
But
contact
just,
with you?
I really want, they do, and I want to just reach out to them, see how they're doing, and always remind them how much they've really impacted my life and what contribution they made to me. So it's always important to go back and tell the people who've had an influence on your life, what that means.
No, that's a big thing. And I was talking to some of the alumni of Case Western, and they were telling me the same thing, that they reach out to their professors,
all the time.
still in touch.
Yes.
And it's beyond my understanding, how do professors like yourself and people like yourself who have impacted so many people still remain connected to them?
That is a topic for the next talk, because I can talk for so long on how this faculty-student relationship
Right.
is part of a bigger network, and how does that work? But
We'll do that for
that'll
the
take
next
a long,
podcast.
long time.
Yeah, perfect.
You're coming again anyway,
Yes.
right?
Perfect. Thank you so
All
much,
right,
guys.
Listen, thank you for
Really
coming
appreciate
you.
over and spending some time. Got to know you well, so that was very nice.
Thank you so much.
And I'll see you sometime
Yes.
in the first week of December.
Thank you so much.
Right?
Thank you.